Amigas. I have a very special guest with me. We've known each other for a very long time, and I think it's so cute how we met and how we recently reconnected. Or maybe was it last year when we reconnected on that shoot?
Definitely last year, yeah.
Last year. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is my sweet friend, Naohmi.
Hi.
She is an amazing photographer, creative, has a really cool studio, Amigas studio, and she's Latina.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about culture, creativity, a mix of the two. And I'm so excited because I feel like the last time we shot and worked together, we had a really good conversation about maybe all the things we're going to talk about now. But, and the whole time I'm probably even said it to you. I was like, I wish I was recording this because everyone needs to hear this. So I'm really excited to have you. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Do you want to give a quick little introduction about who you are, what you do?
Yes. So I am Naohmi. Hello, folks. I am a photographer and co-founder of Amigas Studio, which is a full-service creative agency. I think my work, really the bulk of my work, is exploring the intersection of people, culture, art, and athletics. I have been doing photography since I was 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, since I was 15 years old. So I was a junior, sophomore in high school. I was in my art class, the only art class that we had. It was drawing.
Okay.
And I was into it, but I wasn't I thought being, finally getting to the only art class in the school, I was going to thrive there. I was going to find my people, but it just wasn't it. So I told the teacher, Mr. Crockett, shout out.
If you're listening.
Honestly, hit me up. It's been a while. I told him hey, is there anything else I can do in this school? Is what's up with our arts program? Is there ceramics? Is there what more can I get into? And he told me that, we just got rid of our photography program. And right behind you in the closet is a closet full of 50 Holga cameras.
Whoa.
And I will teach you how to shoot black and white film on the side if you complete all your work and are open to learning how to expose and get basically an extra class.
Yeah.
So I went for it.
Wow.
Yeah. And he shot me how to expose film properly.
Oh my gosh.
And ever since then, I haven't stopped with the
camera.
Wow.
Yeah. That's so cool. So it was kind of you've always been drawn to art to some degree, but it was just that one opportunity where it was here's photography, and then you took it and ran with it.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I think it's always been, I knew there, the creative space was always always had my people there. It's just finding the avenue, which
That's
really
cool.
took it to the next level.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I love hearing about people's photography journeys because they're always so different. And I feel it shows too, what you do with photography today. Wedding photographers are always I've always loved love, and they're cute and cheesy and I love all these romance movies, and then I feel more editorial and stuff like that. It's they're more visual artists and then photographers. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting hearing about everyone's journey. I'm wow, we all come from different places. I love it.
Yeah.
And then you were born and raised in LA, which I think is so cool because your studio is in LA, and
yes.
I just and we can talk about this later, but I love that with your studio, Amiga Studio, you've been using it for events in the community, and that's something that we've talked about maybe even doing in the next year or so.
Definitely.
When did you start Amiga Studio?
I started Amiga Studio with my co-founder Ginger in 2020.
During COVID.
We started during COVID. She had just gone freelance after a long time in the corporate world, and we connected initially just by she would hire me as a photographer for the brands that she worked with, and we were always connected about telling these stories of women in athletics or people who are underrepresented, just really celebrating people at their core.
Yeah.
And the moment she went freelance, we went on a hike and we were talking, and she's like, let's just start something together. Let's take what we know and expand it. Let's do the work that we want to do. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Like,
wow,
we work well together. Why not?
Yeah.
And we kind of went full force, and it's been great ever since. We have our studio downtown in the Arts District area.
So cool.
And we really just keep searching for the people's stories that we want to showcase or that we want to see in bigger media.
Yes.
And while we're doing that, we always, we're always hiring people that need to be represented behind the scenes as well. And that's kind of how Amiga got started, is mostly just see representation all around and have these people lead in front of the camera and behind the scenes.
Yeah. I feel like 2020 was like the year where like a lot of brands, companies, and businesses were like, oh, we need to change a lot of things. And I feel like there's still a lot of change that has to be made. And this is something that we were talking about the last time we hung out. But it's like representation in the creative and like business areas. Yeah. And so I want to know for you, what do you feel is the most challenging thing about being a Latina in this industry?
Well, going back to that, representation, I think number one, the hardest thing is there's no representation of Latinas in a large scale in the commercial space. Like, of course, there are tons of people around me who small businesses, creatives, entrepreneurs, but I want to see us up there. I want to see us like
behind the scenes, not just the face of it.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to see us up there. And for me, not seeing a woman who looks like me really thrive in a commercial space or in like an editorial space, like say like Vogue or whatever, kind of shows like, to me, it makes me feel like, oh, like we don't belong there, or I won't get that job, or we're just not there, and it's going to be that much harder for me to get there. Yeah. So I think that's the challenging part of being a Latina, but I don't believe any of that to be true. I definitely know we deserve to be in those spaces. Yeah. We're going to be in those spaces. We're going to show up, show out. We're going to do all the things. It's just a matter of getting there. It just makes it a little more tricky when there's no one that looks like you up there. Yeah. But I think that comes with, like, now we got to do the work to get there.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so different. Like, for me, I feel like I work on both ends. Like, I'm both the face, but also like behind the scenes. Yeah. And I feel like I've like created a really cool clientele specifically with Moms on Film, where a bunch of Latinas are reaching out and they're like, you're going to understand me. You get my vision. And that's so cool. And I feel like the challenging thing with when I work with brands as like being the face of is they'll reach out to me. And like a part of me is like, I love that they're reaching out because they notice the lack of diversity. But then I show up to shoots or I'm talking to their managers or whoever, and there is no diversity in that workplace. Yeah. And it makes, for me personally, it's like this like battle where it's like, I low-key feel like you're using me to like put out like, oh, look how diverse we are. But then when you look behind the scenes, there's no one that looks like you, can connect with you, can relate with you. Yeah. And I think that is something that has to change. It's exactly what you're saying. Like, not just representation in the visuals, but also behind the scenes. Yeah. Because not everyone wants to be in front of a camera or a model. Like, there's so many gifts and talents that are needed like behind the scenes that Latinas are very capable of doing too. Yeah. So
here to thrive, people.
I love that. And I honestly love meeting other Latina photographers because there aren't a lot, especially ones that shoot film. Like, photography is still a very male dominated industry in my opinion. Yeah. And that's why I've been geeking out about my female filmmakers too, because even like women filmmakers aren't a lot of them. And I'm just like, guys, get the guys out of here. Sorry, AJ. We have a man here. We love you,
but this is our space right now.
And I think it just like, it tells a story differently. It strengthens a relationship. Like, there's like so much beauty in connecting. Yeah. And the shoots that I've walked onto where I have had a Latina like just like talking to me and just like saying something in Spanish, I'm like, wow, like you get me, you understand. And so I think it's so cool what you're doing, and I feel like more brands need to be like reminded of this.
Yeah.
So.
I also think like what you were saying of the way of, you know, a woman on set is able to get a little more vulnerability out of a subject or create a more comforting space. It's not about, okay, we're going to make her look good. She's going to look hot or whatever the case may be. It's more like she's going to look powerful.
Yeah.
She's going to look confident.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's such a difference in the way women capture women. And I think that goes to, if right now Latinx stories are hot, the way a Latina captures another Latina is important.
Yes,
you don't want to just look like the culture.
Yeah.
Sure, I have my hoops. Sure, she's got her Cortezes on. Like, that's not what this is about. It's about how she feels in those and what those represent for her. Yeah.
I love all that. And I think that like speaks, I feel like the photo shoot that we recently did together, we did a shoot, for those who don't know, for Hispanic Heritage Month. And it was kind of like thrown together last minute. It was like, hey, are you free next week to do this? And for me personally, I'm like, that is when I work best. Like when I'm inspired in the moment and I'm like, let's go get this done right now. But I went to LA, you took care of all the locations, which was amazing. And I felt like it was like, it just, there was like a story to be told, and that's kind of like something that we were talking about, like in general with like shooting. It's like you had the vision for like, okay, come right here, wear this, do your hair like that. And I'm like, if I worked with someone who wasn't Latina, like this would have looked and felt so differently. And I think when you are able to connect, it really changes the outcome of photos, which I feel like a lot of people don't know. Like a lot of people think it's like, oh, I'm just hiring a person who's good at photography, but it's like, no, like it makes such a difference when you hire someone who like understands and sees you. So I'll have to post the pictures when this episode airs, because like those photos were like, I felt so seen that whole time, and I felt like like in between, like it felt very organic. It's like, do you want a snack? Let's get some fruit. Let's put the fruit in the photos. It was very like, you know,
it's like we were really just hanging out at the mercado.
Yes,
that was the best part of it. Is like this wasn't new to us. We weren't foreign to the place. It was like. Wait, can we like stop and look at the boots? Can we like stop and buy a shirt for your daughter?
We bought her. Oh, no. Well, technically you bought it. And then I paid you back. But we found like a shirt that said like Barbie Latina on it. And it was pink, and she wears it all the time. And her teachers love it. But
amazing. But it was like, that's how genuine this was. Totally. You know, it felt at home. And finding someone who understands what you're capturing on a core level, I think is. We'll just take the story that much further and make it feel a lot more authentic. Yeah.
I love that. And I think too, I kind of want to go back to when we met. So I'll give a little bit of a background. Is Darling still a thing? Darling magazine?
Darling has made a comeback this year. They're still a thing. Yeah.
Okay. So we met in 2016 at a Darling magazine party, which at the time Darling was everything. Like it was like it was basically what, like, I'm trying to think, Magnolia. Is it Magnolia Market or Heart in Magnolia or whatever?
They actually are, I believe they like bought out Darling. So that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Wow. I didn't know that.
So Darling is like a women's magazine that was all about what we're talking about, like empowering women, self-care, style. Community.
Yes. And it was like they put together events and they did like really cool things. And so this night they had a party at like a mansion in, was it Beverly Hills or something? And I went with a friend because I was too scared to go alone. And then I met you on the rooftop, and we were just chatting. I was like, oh, where are you from? And then we were just like talking and stuff. And it was so cool because you were talking about how you wanted to dive into like fashion photography and like working with brands, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like I hope that like happens and stuff. I'm not sure if you were like starting off by then, or if you were like what were you doing at the time actually?
I actually was working as a photo producer. A photo producer assistant at Darling. So I worked with Darling. Because their whole thing was, I mean, what made them unique is they commissioned so much original photography, which a lot of magazines don't do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was fun to be behind the scenes and learn from them, learn how to build a team, learn how to budget, like all the business stuff of photography and production side. I definitely learned from them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I was there just helping out at the event. And then, we connected and I was like, oh, another Latina. I mean, even in that space, being a Latina, you know, was especially like Magnolia vibes.
Yes. I was going to say, especially a vibe like Darling and Magnolia, where it's like, and to be honest with you, that night, because it was so long ago and I was younger and I was probably just like less self-aware about this. But that night I probably wasn't thinking like, I hope I meet another Latina. Yeah. And then we connected and you're the only person that we had a long conversation. We were just like sitting on the rooftop, like talking. Yeah. And I'm like, I think that night would have looked so different if I didn't meet someone who looked like me. Yeah. And then it was crazy because you're talking about starting a photo business, wanting to work in fashion, editorial. And we but we reconnected this past year for a shoot that I was modeling for that you were shooting. Yeah. And it was so cute when we like walked up to each other. We were like, oh my God, it's you. Wow. So that was really cute.
And then you brought up like, wait, I know you from so many years ago. And just to know that you're still championing me. And like, of course, we followed each other on social media since then. But to have that deeper connection and like see each other go after it. Yeah. The best thing ever.
So cool. Yeah. I was like, oh, and then since then we've like definitely reconnect and we're like, let's shoot, let's get coffee, come on my podcast. We're here. Yeah. So I just like love that. And then I wanted to ask you just to go back to like the cultural conversation. Yeah. I feel like everyone, including Latinos, are really tough about you're not Latino enough. Like if you don't speak Spanish, you're not Latino enough. If you if you've never been to Mexico, you're not Latino enough. If you're third generation, whatever. We just hear that we're not enough. Yeah. What have you felt like has been challenging with that?
Yeah. Well, I went through that whole identity crisis of not being enough, Latino enough or Latina enough. Last year, for sure.
Last year.
Okay. Very recent. Yeah. And I am second generation. I am a Nosabo kid, but not for long. I'm learning people.
Which, real quick, I want to talk about what Nosabo means. Yes. Because I throw that term around and sometimes my friends don't get it. And I'm like, okay, so it's a joke. And it's kind of a sad joke, but now it's like kind of funny. But
people claim it, though.
People claim it. And I'm honestly like, you know what? Do it. Love it. But no sabo is incorrectly conjugated for I don't know in Spanish. Yeah. So you would say no sé in Spanish if you don't know. But no sabo is like a term to like poke fun at people who are Latino who don't understand like how to conjugate or speak Spanish correctly. So that's the joke, but
it's like the non-Spanish speakers. Yeah. Mostly second gen who just didn't grow up with it in their household. Yeah. So I identify. Yeah. But I try, people.
I feel like you spoke it at the market though when we were there.
Oh yeah, shaking in my boots. But but you know, I think it's just one of those things you got to do all the time. Yeah. So I'm trying. Yeah. But
so you're wrestling with this last year.
So I was wrestling with this last year, and the thing that I really hang on to now is loving the third culture lens that I'm a part of, loving the biculturalism, loving that I am both American and Mexican, loving that I am 200%. I'm not 50 this, 50 that. I'm 200%. And I have that much more to give the world. I have that many more stories to share. It's like, yes, I am American. So my experience of being Mexican is always gonna be different, you know, like number one, no sabo. Number two, like I didn't really grow up with like ranchero music in the background. I grew up with Selena, you know, so it's just, I think it's more embracing who you are and fully knowing and understanding and celebrating that Latinas, Latinos, whatever your cultural background is. Like, you can be multifaceted. You can be multidimensional. It doesn't look one way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even like in my style, it's funny because sometimes I don't wear the hoop. Sometimes I don't like the like icons of what it means to be Mexican.
The staples of
it. The staples, like, I admire it. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
I grew up in LA. How could I not?
Yeah.
It's just not who I am. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. It's like, there are people who look like me. There are people who celebrate what it means to be Mexican like me. And I think making space for those stories and showing up as you are is the most powerful thing you can do, because there are more people like me. You know, there are more bicultural people. There are more. Yeah, I think it's just celebrating who I am and fully embracing it. And whoever thinks you're not enough, I'm like, for who? For you?
Yeah.
All right with me. Like, I'm not affected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that word that you use, multidimensional, because it's like, you can be both. You can be all of it, or like less of this and one of the other.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, I've struggled for so long with like, what the heck am I? Because I don't know if you know this, my mom is from Brazil, but she grew up in Peru.
Yeah.
My dad is Mexican. I was born and raised in California, but I grew up visiting their home countries for months at a time. We would like live in Brazil for like 3 months. So at age 4, I was trilingual, and then I would come back and feel so confused and like disconnected. Definitely when I was younger. When I was in high school, not so much, because that was like when my parents divorced and a lot of things changed by then.
Yeah.
But it was more when I was younger. And at the time, I couldn't make sense of it. I was like, oh, I feel a little out of place when I'm like with this group of people. But even with like, I feel like Chicanos are even very different than like Mexicans in Mexico.
Yes.
Like, it's 2 different cultures.
Yep.
And so I feel like I never like fit in with Chicano culture either, because I was like, well, my dad's like un chilango, he's from the city, so I'm like, I feel like I'm like a fresa almost, but like, you know,
but you're not.
But I'm not. So, and then but I'm like, but like there's this like beachgoer in me that like is from my mom, because she grew up, or she was born in Brazil and like has always admired the beach, and like that's something that we always did growing up, where I feel like a lot of like Chicanos and Mexicans like don't do that. They don't go to the beach just for fun. So I'm like, what the heck am I? And honestly, it's taken. And I think that subconsciously, that's why I never was like really proud or loud about it growing up, because I was like, well, I don't even know what I am. I'm not particularly in like one area or the other.
Yeah.
And so the past few, I think in like 2017, I really, after I had my son, I really started embracing it, because like the conversations of like, are you going to talk to your kids in Spanish and this and that like came up. And so I was like full on Spanish with him, like his first few years. That was his first language too. And I feel like that's really when I became aware of, okay, what am I? How do I identify as a Latina? Is it because I am bilingual? Is it because I was born here? Like, what does that mean? And so I feel like since then I've just been like processing, and like I've been very proud of like my roots. And there are definitely other things. Like, I recently watched Selena, and there was something that her dad said in the movie, which I don't know if he said this in real life, but he said like, when in America, you're too Mexican for Americans. And then when you're in Mexico, you're too American for them. And that's like, my family in other countries have never made fun of like the way I speak Spanish, but I know, even though I'm bilingual, I know it's so different than their Spanish and like my accent. And so there is this like, I'm proud to be Latino and I'm here. And then when I go over there, I'm like, oh my God, like,
so different.
I can't. Or like they say slang and I'm like, what does que padre mean? Like, I'm just like, how, dad, what? And so it's been like really fun, like diving into that and exploring that, but it's also been very like confusing, which I feel like is why it's so important to surround myself with other Latinas who get it. And one of my closest friends is like from Ecuador, and she moved out here when she was like an older child, and hearing about her journey. And then one of my other closest friends is like from Costa Rica, but she's like white, and she's like, I didn't look like them growing up out there, but I like understand Latino culture. And I'm like, wow, it really is so different for all of us.
Yeah.
But
and I think even like thinking about this more, it's even understanding how your family views the culture. That affects a lot, because thinking about my family, when I was growing up, my grandma told me to identify as white.
Yeah.
Because assimilation was so important. And that's how I would succeed in the world. That's how I would like get the raise, get the job, provide for my family.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, we're like, I'm white. Like, you check the white box when you're given the option.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, take a step back.
Yeah.
Girl, you are not white. Like, celebrate that you're Mexican American. You're bicultural. You are multifaceted, multidimensional.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to do that. It's more like I get to celebrate myself in a new way.
Yeah.
And show up for this whole third lens culture that is hardly even celebrated.
Yeah. It's so true.
It's so funny to learn how we're all experiencing different things with the same root of just like, we just want to be seen and celebrated.
Don't tell us we're not enough. I feel like too, like our culture's so hard about in general not being enough for anything. Like, it's like being Latina is not for the weak.
No, I mean, even like my own experience, I remember when I'm like, whenever I bust out my Spanish in front of family and I have to order in front of them, order food, they're like, table is quiet. All the eyes on me. They're like, is she gonna order correctly? And I'm like,
way.
Dos enchiladas de queso, por favor.
Oh, that's perfect.
Ooh. And then like I can breathe. I'm like, una horchata? Okay, I'm good. Passed the test. But
that's so funny.
We're definitely hard on ourselves, but I think it comes out of love of like, show up for our culture a little more. But like, girl, I'm born here. So.
And it's hard when like your parents and grandparents, like my mom did that a little bit, not so much my dad. Like if I were to like tell people like, oh, my name's Valerie, he'd be like, Valeria. Like he'd get really mad about it. So that's not your name. And then where my mom is more like, I almost said this in Spanish, but I don't know, whatever. But she would say like, I want you, like, you should like marry like a white guy because your life will be a lot easier. Like put that into my head, which ironically enough, I did marry. He's technically half Mexican. His dad's from, I don't know if you know, my husband's biological dad is from Mexico, but he was adopted. Amazing. So he has like a whole nother story. He's like, I technically am Mexican, but I didn't grow up with that cultural part of it. But like,
wild. His DNA is still Mexican.
Yeah. Wow. We actually took 23andMe tests after our son was born. So back in 2017.
Yeah.
And we both got like, which I knew this, like very high, like indigenous percentage, but I was shocked to see his. I was like, wow, oh my gosh, you really are Mexican. He's like, I told you, I've been telling you. Like, it's so crazy. But I forgot where I was even going with that. But I was saying, but it's hard when like our grandparents, our parents, like and like you said, it's a place out of love, but when they put a certain idea in our heads where it's like, no, you have to adapt to American culture because like we made these sacrifices for you to have an easy life here. Yeah. But things have changed so much now. And it's like, it's really, and like, honestly, living in America, it's like, it is very multicultural. Like this is a melting pot. It's not about like, you know, being like, you're just white. Like it shouldn't be that. Like there are beautiful people from all cultures everywhere. Yeah. So,
and it should be celebrated.
Yeah. It's not about adapting to like what being an American is. It's embracing that we all have some type of cultural, well, some of us have a multicultural background.
Yeah. But and I think that's just how we become stronger communities, right? It's like, how do we learn from each other? We're so lucky to have so many types of people around us. Yeah. It's just like, be friends with them.
Be friends with them.
Eat their food.
Yeah. Eat their food. Yeah. That's something that I love that my dad did for us too growing up is like he loves culinary and food, an amazing cook. Yeah. Went to France for like a cooking scholarship and stuff.
Amazing.
And then got kicked out because he got arrested. So I need to have my dad on the podcast. I feel like that'd be kind of fun.
Sounds like he was, fighting for what he believed in.
He has a lot of funny stories.
Oh.
But he always like introduced other cultures into our house. Like he would make like pad thai like growing up for the family, like very random.
That's cool.
It's very cool because I like now I'm like I feel like I can eat anything and not like feel intimidated. Where like I'm like, ew, what is that? I'm just like, pad thai, sweet,
hit it,
love it. Vietnamese, love it. Indian, bring it. You know,
that's amazing.
Thanks.
So cool.
Shout out to my dad. He probably doesn't know how to listen to podcasts, but a question I wanted to ask you too was, how do you feel connected to your culture through your work?
Yeah, well, I think recently, since that whole identity struggle last year, I think I'm realizing like I identify as Chicana and mostly like an Angeleno. Like LA is its own culture, its own really breed.
Yeah.
So I've been taking the time more to like go to the mercado more, go explore my neighborhood, hit up different panaderias. Yeah. Like I think me making time to explore my city more has made me has gotten me inspired to like, that's why we shot at the mercado. I was like, this tile work.
Yeah.
Like what? How is this here and I'm not doing anything?
Yeah.
Everything's handmade. Everything's like hand painted. I was just in awe of my own culture.
And it feels nostalgic too. Like we grew up going to the mercado, going to those places, and it's like, oh,
exactly.
Healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Healing is a great word for this. I think another way that I've connected my culture to my work has been, I think I'm like 4 months of doing this, but every month I try to connect with one Latina, Chicana, whoever person in my community, whether I know them or not. Sometimes I just find them online, and photograph them, tell their story, learn about them. Like that's how kind of we got connected. I've done like a studio visit with an artist and connected with like a local farmers market coordinator. It's just like celebrating the people who I want to be celebrated, whether it's it's not paid, but I'm here to do it. Like that's what is important to me. Yeah. So making sure that I continue to do that.
I love that.
Is like how I celebrate my culture.
Keep doing it.
Thank you.
I love it. I'm like, we need more stories in the media, on social media, in real life. Yeah. All the things. Yeah. That's so cool. What goals are you currently this is a two-parter. What goals are you currently working on right now? Okay. And what is like your dream job, dream shoot?
Okay. Current goal kind of goes hand in hand with what that project is, like once a month photographing Latinx person. My big goal right now is to create a book of BIPOC leaders. So how will that happen? I don't know, but it's going to happen. Yeah. I feel like I'm in the start of it. Yeah. So I really want to make like a coffee table book. Showcasing these change makers, Black and brown people.
Love it.
That's the big goal right now. That's a big vision.
We need to talk after this because I've been working on a book for the past year. Have I told you this?
I believe so. Yeah. Okay. We definitely need to connect more about this.
But I'm slow because I'm so overwhelmed. So
we'll hold each other
accountable. Yeah. And it's scary. It's very vulnerable. It's different than like posting your work in a tiny square on social media. It's like you are designing this and like putting your heart and hard work into it. And it's like, I think that's so beautiful. Yeah. That's going to be amazing. I'm so excited.
I love that we're both making books. That's amazing.
I know. I love that. And then your dream shoot.
Yes. Dream shoot would be something, let's see. Dream shoot. Number one, where I get to hire all my friends behind the scenes because we just know each other's language. Yeah. Hire real people. Like, whom would you like to be a guest on this?
Yes. Sign me up.
I think something where I get to talk about being bicultural, like a visual story that represents that because, like I said, there's no representation in that space. Yeah. That like being Latina is one thing and then being multicultural or bicultural is another thing. Yeah. So I think a photo essay on that, photo story on that would be incredible. Showcasing real people and their real stories, celebrating it in all the ways.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
You can find me on IG at Naohmi, Naohmi, and at Amiga Studio.
Yes.
And yeah,
I'm
that's
so
my
excited.
website's just my name as well, naomi.com.
How did you like? I love that it's just what a flex to just have your Instagram be literally just your name.
So fun fact, I got Instagram like the day it came out, if not like the week it came out.
No way.
If you scroll back, you'll see all my food posts, me at Disneyland, like literally all the OG filters.
Oh, I love that.
I have not archived anything.
Good. I love that.
Yeah, so that's how I lucked out. I remember seeing all the people with their cool names, like their cool usernames,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I can't think of one. I'm just gonna keep my name,
That's amazing.
and it lucked out. So
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I always wondered, like, typing in or seeing your name on Instagram, like, how does she get just, like, did you pay someone to, like, give it to you? Or-
OG
Dang.
IGer.
I love that. What a
Yeah.
flex. That's so awesome. Okay, well, for anyone listening, stay tuned because we will hopefully, we're speaking this into existence.
Yes,
We will hopefully have some type of event in the near future, maybe after holidays, because
definitely 2024.
yeah.
Catch
Let us know
us.
what kind of event we should do. Like what should we do? An art show, another art show or something?
Art show, maybe some music, maybe some tacos.
Some cumbia.
Hey,
Love
we've
it.
got ideas.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, we're going to have to like talk about this because I'm so excited. I'm an event girl. I'm like, give me all the events.
You're like queen.
I just love to party. Not like woo party, but I'm like, I get so excited meeting and chatting
Yeah.
with other people. And
I love that about you.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just like to talk. So I have a
Hey, you bring the
podcast.
people together. That's what we need.
Yeah, it's so true.
I love
it's
it.
important. I feel like there aren't enough. I mean, there are a lot of events happening, but like at the same time, there aren't enough. I'm like, we need to be bringing people together. We need to be bringing our gente together.
Yes.
So, thank you so much for driving all this way from LA.
Love to be here. Hey.
What a journey. Love that for you. And I appreciate, please follow, connect with Naohmi. She's an amazing photographer. I'm going to have to show off those cute photos you took of me. But anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.